Good morning, everybody. How are you? Hope everybody's good and has some kind of creative inspiration for the day. I actually have a little bit of energy, so I'm excited. And this is something that I have been intending to do for a really long time once it finally occurred to me to do it. This is it's a cutting board. I picked this up quite a few years ago at a resale shop. And my intention was, it's like kind of scratched up. I was going to sand it down and oil it and just use it for a nice cutting board. And, yay, super expensive cutting board for dirt cheap. Well, when I got home and I examined it really closely, then I could see that there's a crack in it. So I can't scratch or sand out the crack, and it wouldn't be sanitary to use. So it just got used decoratively for a few years, and then I moved it and was intending to take it out to the garbage. I didn't know what else to do with it. Then, after it sat in a corner collecting dust for way longer than I'd like to admit, it occurred to me, I could paint this. It's wood board. This could be a great painting surface. So today we're gonna do a little bit of prep on it, and I'm gonna zoom in a little bit so you can kind of see the surface of it, and you might be able to see just how deeply scratched it is. All these scratches, and you might just be able to see the crack. There's a crack here. You can see a little bit more as it comes to the end. There's a crack. But I'm not going to use this side. I'm not actually even going to worry about all that because it has these divots for catching juice if you were cutting up meat, I guess. So we're going to turn it over and paint this side, which is actually still quite smooth. I've cleaned it, and I'm still going to work a little. There's still a little bit of crack through there. So the first thing, outside of having cleaned it, at least I did that, there was actually some dust and dust bunnies and things from it having been sat for a while. Okay, here we go. Try to get it in camera. I can actually minimize how big the screen for my face is, because who cares? Alright, so I have some Gorilla wood filler. We're gonna start with that, and I am gonna fill on the front of the board as well, just to help with the stability of it over long terms, but cut off my nozzle here. Come on, scissors, you can do it. There we go. That went flying. I'll find it later. Yeah, to add its stability, I'm going to do the back first so that this has time to start setting up and drying while everything else is getting done. But I'm actually going to use my little palette knife here to help get it into the crack and smooth it out, instead of using what do you call it? Oh, this stuff is solid in there. Uh-oh. Is it too old? I'm not stepping on the tube, really. Get it to go. I would never do that. There it is. Okay. Pop a little bit and it'll dry out. Alright. So, we're going to... I can zoom in a little bit so you can actually see what I'm doing again. Alright. Put some light on the topic. There, and you can kind of see it's not a big crack, it's just right along a seam in the wood. So we're just gonna try to get some of this filler into it. And it looks like bamboo, perhaps. The brand of the board, which I don't know, I'm not a connoisseur of cutting boards, I don't know what's really what. It says mango leaf on the handles. I don't know if that means it's supposed to be mango wood. It looks like bamboo to me. A little, I don't know what you call those things. So yeah, we're in the art studio and we're doing a little wood repair. It's just that kind of thing. But it's just, I finished those 2 paintings in the last stream that I've been working on for some while. And I was trying to figure out what to take up to do next, like to start a new painting, and it just occurred to me, like, this is something I've been sitting on with the intention of doing for a really long time. And the added benefit of it being, you know, it's green to do this. We are reusing, we are keeping something out of the landfill and being economical, which I'm all about. I'm spilling as much of this wood stuff as I am actually getting it on there, so maybe I'll use my finger first to kind of put it on. And then use the little palette knife to smooth it in. That reminds me. So I'm not really on Facebook. I mean, once upon a time I have an account. I don't even know exactly how I'm not like using it. I haven't been on there in ages. But I can remember that once on there, I had a post of a painting get flagged as like inappropriate or against their guidelines or something. And I was trying to figure out why. And it was because in the description of the painting, I said I used the term palette knife. So you remove the term palette knife from the words in the post. Then it was fine. Context doesn't even matter. Okay. Also, I had a shop linked to them for a while of some paintings. And I was constantly the paintings were constantly showing up as getting flagged and removed from my shop. Although it wouldn't tell you exactly why it was being flagged. It was just like, you need to fix this. It goes against our guidelines. And until then, they just pulled it out. One of them was like a cute little deer. A little like watercolor cartoony deer from way back in the day that I did. And he just had a little quote bubble that said, meh, M-E-H. I think that was the one. That was the deer one. Had that quote. And then Harvey Milk portrait that I did. That got flagged for removal. All right, Facebook. I see you. I don't like it. Anyway. Yeah, I don't really do anything there anymore. Okay. So we're gonna go along here. Really try, like on the other side of the board, it's like a hairline. You can't even you can barely get anything into it. It's a little wider here, so we're really gonna kind of try to work it in. Also, not a professional when it comes to woodworking or anything, so just gonna say that little disclosure. Nothing I'm doing is gonna hurt me or anybody else, but I'm sure that somebody who's good with working with wood could come along and be like, this is all wrong. But going with it. I am a DIY kind of person, and as much as I can, given that I only have so many resources and space available to me. I don't have a garage where I can have tools. But I do like to be able to, you know, be a little bit self-sufficient and be able to do things myself when it's reasonable to do so. And usually it also saves you some money. Okay. both pushing it in and sort of scraping off some of the excess at the same time. It will need to be sanded once it's all set, but for now, let's get it in there. Okay. Now that I've made a mess. It's okay, I need a vacuum in here anyway. Actually, I'm due to move some things around. If you saw my last stream all the way to the end, at the end of it, it worked out because I was pretty much done with what I was working on, but I ended it at that particular time because I just started dropping frames like crazy. My connection, my kilobytes per second, my upload just went to garbage. So I did some screwing around with that, tried to make things work better. And I fixed some things, but in terms of like the stability of just my internet connection, I decided like I needed to do this. I didn't get it done. But to run an Ethernet cable to my computer instead of connecting to the Wi-Fi for streaming. And I decided, oh yeah, I want to do that. I need to do that. Which was 10 minutes before I was starting the stream. So I actually got the cable in here. I happen to have, because I've had to do this before with an old computer. My last iMac Pro, which was way old. The wireless modem, the wireless receiver on it just died. So I had to hardwire it. So I happened to have a 50-foot Ethernet cable sitting around to run from the living room to studio. And I did it, and I plugged it in, and I turned off my Wi-Fi, and nothing. So I don't know if I probably did something wrong on hooking it up in the living room, but I'll figure that out. Anyway, tech nonsense, that doesn't matter. Okay, so this still needs a little time to set up yet. So I'll do a little, I have a trick that I learned by just reading about how other people set up wood for painting on. And because this is a rather smooth surface, I'm sorry, I'm gonna adjust the camera a little bit. It's a little high there. Okay. Me and my fairly cheap tripod, unfortunately. I think I'm gonna replace that one of these days. Anyway. To just get like the little grains to sit down before we prime it with some gesso, using a paper bag. I do have really fine sandpaper and I could use that too, but I wanted to give that a try and see how that worked. Sorry, coffee sip break. So I happen to have like a, old school lunch bags from taking your lunch at school. I assume kids still use these for that. Been a long time since I have. Okay. Another thing I need to do that I keep forgetting because it's super inconvenient. With my Mac, my mouse is wireless and I need to charge it. My keyboard's the same way, but with a keyboard you can just plug the cord into the back of the keyboard and still keep working. I don't know if you've all seen this mouse. Where the plug-in, it isn't at the front or the back. Just plug it in to charge it. It's right on the bottom, right there. So you have a cable coming in on the bottom. Guess what? You can't use that while it's charging. So because I need to do it, like when I'm leaving my studio, leaving from being in front of the computer, I just forget. Alright, so we're just gonna see how this goes. Is that really loud? I can turn the mic a little bit away from it if that's really loud. Looks like it's barely picking it up. Okay. I'm not too worried about this because, like I said, I'm going to be gessoing the surface. That'll give me a nice primed surface for painting on. And my intention is to put on it gesso as the primer. I have acrylic gesso, and that will work really well. Okay. I will need some actual sandpaper to get the excess of the filler off. The only thing that gave me pause about doing this is I think I've mentioned before that I've been kind of obsessed with this YouTube channel, Baumgartner Restorations, where he takes very old paintings to do the restoration work on them. So hundreds of years old, a lot of the stuff, sometimes in very terrible shape. And some of the worst things that he has to figure out how to deal with is works on board, where the boards have like completely like broken in places and you got to figure out how to put them together in a way that makes sense. That actually gave me a little bit of pause about working on this wooden board, but I'm gonna do my best to have this set up well. And probably the crack came from exposure to moisture. And that's the kind of thing that would happen if you have a wood cutting board and you leave it to soak in the sink or something like that. That will definitely cause the potential for cracking and destroying the binding that holds the wood pieces together. But as this is no longer being used for cutting board, I don't anticipate any of that being a problem. Okay, that is kind of loud in the mic, right? Moving the mic to the side for a second. Just smooth this out. Sorry, I'm standing right in front of what I'm doing. Alright, just about there. Alright, that took off the excess. I'm gonna grab that paper bag again. There it is. And just kind of buff that area for a minute, and that'll help get any of the dust off. Again, I'm sorry, I'm standing in front of the thing. Like, need somebody in here to just yell at me when I'm doing things like that. Hey, Lynell, move it. Okay. There we go. Pretty good. Feels good. Feels nice. Now, let's another coffee sip. Bring the mic back around to the front. Next thing is going to be a layer of gesso. I have heard of some people using like a thin down layer of of a varnish as a surface preparation, as a primer. I've heard of that. And then maybe rough it with some really fine sandpaper just to give it a little tooth paint on top of. But we are using gesso for when it doesn't need an insane amount of time to set up like that does. Does this even say? Yeah, it says, yeah, it needs a little time to set up, but not like, not in the same way that your varnish does. Now I have a putty knife somewhere in here within arm's reach. Where is the question? Oh, nice big jar. I can actually get my putty knife in there. So. Having a putty knife, I'm going to just initially get it on here. I'll probably go back in with a brush and, yeah, putty knife in the studio every now and again. Just the thing that you need. So, getting gesso on the board. This funny, moment this morning. I am a forgetful person, you know, ADHD, lack of bad short-term memory, object permanence, things like that. So I write notes to myself, post-its and things all the time. And you ever written a note to yourself that was so cryptic that you are like, Yes! Oh my god, how long was I muted? I'm sorry. Hi, Sadie. Thank you for jumping in and letting me know that as I'm sitting here going on and on about insane ideas. Well, that's great, because now I can restart my insane idea. Stop me if you heard this. So, I wasn't high, and I wasn't drunk. I think I was driving in my car, and it occurred to me, what if a frame for painting could be fabric? Right? That's kind of a dumb, absolutely dumb thing, right? You're working so perfectly. Oh, good. Good. I'm glad it's good now. Thank you for letting me know. That is another danger of having my microphone right here, because the design of this microphone is that the mute button is right on the top of it. So it's really easy for me to bump it, and I try to be really careful, but here, okay. Yes, fabric as a frame. Sounds stupid. Doesn't make any sense. But this is an 1.5 inch, 15-pound cutting board. So it doesn't need structural support from a frame. Outside of maybe if I wanted to use an external frame of some sort for mounting hardware. Which would be, I mean, it's just an odd thing. It's got the handles, which I think I kind of want to leave on. But this seems like the perfect opportunity to mess with that idea a little bit. It sounds so dumb, but I think that there's a potential for, something that could be worked out with the right application, the right materials, the right idea. I think it could be really interesting. But you know what that means? It means that I will have this almost done, ready to frame or finish to be hung, and because I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with that idea, it'll just sit for like 2 years on the floor of my studio with a few other paintings that are down there. Okay, so this now needs a bit of time to set. Probably, ideally, especially if I want to sand it, 24 hours. Kind of like the fabric inner frames spacers. Yeah, I mean, the fabric I think is often mounted on board for those often, but I think that it could just be, I really need to chew on it some more. Like, the idea came in my head, and at first I'm like gonna dismiss it because that's just the dumbest thing you've ever heard, but there's like, but wait, what if? I don't know. I might figure it out. Somebody else in the meantime will probably figure out better than I ever would, and then I'll be like, darn it. So I'm going to put this in a relatively safe spot for the moment. I say that, but no place is safe for me in my studio. I am a walking disaster. All right, let me think. Where? Maybe over here. I'm gonna grab another painting. Speaking of all the things that sit around my studio unfinished. Just a little bit of gesso on my hands, no big deal. Okay. So here's something I worked on way ages ago. And got to a point and then it just sat. Come on, camera. Nope. Ugh, this tripod head is the worst. Okay. Down. Come on. Come on. There we go. Okay. It could add cool texture. Yeah, exactly. Right? It could just be something that adds another element. There. All right. I think we're good outside of that awful glare. Okay. We'll check. I feel like it's not. We're gonna zoom way in and just see. Oh, nope. Let's get that a little sharp. There we go. Okay, there we go. Something I started ages ago, and what the heck? It only took me 45 minutes to get the cutting board to that point, so let's work on something else. This was my first attempt at really working like in any serious manner with some oil paints and collage and such. And then because I don't barely know what I'm doing with any of that, I went a little too heavy on the oil, and then it's like, okay, well that needs to dry a lot. So it's literally been sitting, it's been, I don't know, probably 4 months at least, maybe 5, maybe more. I actually did work on it on the stream, but now maybe we can get back into it and do a little bit. Did I think I was going to be oil painting today? No, but hey, why not? All right. That means I need to not make a huge mess. Random business card. All right, my oil paints. What I have, I don't have a ton. I kind of had bought just like a starter kit, and I've added a couple randoms to there over time. And I think it'll do the trick for what I need. I have a... It's such a mess in here. I'm so disorganized. It's terrible. I have a glass cutting board somewhere if I can get to it. There's too many paintings in the way. Everywhere. I'm going to be drowning in an insane amount of paintings. Where are they? No. Oh. All right. It's not where I thought it was. Okay. That's a problem. But anyway. We'll use a paper palette. How are you collaging with oils? Is there a medium to stick the collage elements that are oil-based? Are you super careful with placement of acrylic medium? Yep, actually the elements in here that are collaged, I did my initial like underpainting in acrylic, then I added some of the collage elements, and then I started painting over like a bit of a base layer with the oils. So that works okay, whereas, you know, we know the other way around, not so much. I did look into what materials you can use to collage on oils, and there are some adhesives that work for that, I think. But it's been now a while since I looked into it. I often use this. It's a, let's see if this camera gets better. It's really beat up now because I constantly use it, but it's a neutral pH adhesive from Lynell. It is a permanent, but it's pH neutral, so you don't have to worry about it like affecting things. I think that this works with it, I want to say. I think that this can work with it if it's, well, you want it to be fairly cured first, but I would check again. I would verify before I went in and did it. So at this point, I think that I don't know that I will specifically add more collage elements necessarily. I don't think so. It's all very, yeah, it's basically book, it is. It's from the, they do all the bookbinding adhesives and neutral stuff. Yeah, it works great. I use that a lot as my adhesives. In acrylic paintings, you can also use gel medium, but I like that better. Just from using, I'll use either, but I've come to like that one a little bit more. And okay, paints and little. This today I might use a little bit of a fast drying medium. Where is my glass? So I have a little glass, okay, a glass palette, and it has my little cups clipped to it, but I have other things that I can use. Where could it be? It probably is exactly where I looked. I just can't get to it right now to look. Oh my lord. 90-pound weakling here. Come on. We can do it. It's Lynell proof. I would hate to lose the intuitive process because of oils. It's good you found something. Yeah, I kind of just wanted to play with oils because I never really did. It's something where like in my schools growing up as a kid. It's so ridiculous. All right. Towel somewhere. Yeah. I swear I just saw one. It's really a mess in here. It's terrible. We only ever worked with like pastels or acrylic paint. Even in my high school, we never had oil paints. It was a small school. It just didn't have that kind of program. And when I went to art school, I majored in illustration. And with illustration, oh, come on, I have you. Yeah, okay, I got it. In illustration, it's all about a quick turnaround. So there was no talk about or study of using oil paints either. Acrylic or gouache or something like that was more likely to be used. And yeah, so I just never experimented with it and never worked with it. And I was always been kind of curious, but it's always like, oh, I don't have the right ventilation, or I don't have this, that, or the other thing. I've always had like the excuse for why I was kind of afraid of trying it. But I finally just did last year. I just bought a set and started playing first because I didn't really know what I was doing. And then I watched some, videos, read some books. I still don't really know what I'm doing, but it's fun. It's fun. It's something that I'm playing with a lot. My idea on this was to, where all these black lines are, is to give it kind of like an oil. You know how oil reflects light in like this prismy kind of way? I'm gonna create something like that. And I don't know if it'll actually work, but let's try it. Let's see what happens. Yeah, learn as you go, exactly. No fear. If it's garbage, it's garbage. Who cares? Maybe I learned something in the process, right? It's just that's kind of my approach to everything, which I'm lucky enough that it often works out well enough for me, but sometimes it doesn't, and I don't worry about it if it doesn't, because it's a learning process. You get to try something, learn something, and if it didn't work, maybe you do something different next time. So, yeah, let's see. Just start with a very limited palette here, and I think a round brush so we can do some blending. And like I said, I really don't know exactly what my plan is here, but we're just gonna start doing some little glazes with these colors and see if I can make it anything near what I'm imagining in my head. Just have to kind of play with how saturated the colors are compared to the... I'm using a fast drying medium, so it's like, you know, your mix of oil and your what do you call it, the thinner together. So yeah, I really don't know if this is gonna work. I don't know if I have the right colors, and I think that this is kind of one of the reasons, another reason besides the fact that I had to wait a long time for the paint to what I'd put on the last time I painted on this to dry, because I put too much oil in it. Sometimes I just get so hung up on not being confident about the next step that I just let something sit for way too long. And today it's just like, let's just dig in and see if we can make it work. We have a good eye. It's easier to save a painting with that kind of instinct. Yeah, and you know what? If I can't save it, it's not the worst thing. I mean, with, actually not so sure with oils. With my acrylic paintings, it's like, I like it, it's not working. I can just over it and start over. There's always that option when you're working with acrylic, for sure. Which is kind of a... It becomes like a safety blanket in the sense that it's okay to experiment, because it's not like I'm gonna waste the canvas. It's not like I gotta throw it in the trash if it doesn't work, or something like that, you know. And I have plenty of occasions taken an old painting that definitely didn't work and just over it and started anew. I just did that, I think, kind of recently. Which painting was that? Oh, I think it was this one. This had an old painting from a few years ago that, I mean, you know, we all grow. If you're an artist or whatever your skill or anything else is, you know, the more you do, the better you get. The more you can look at stuff you've done in the past and be like, yeah, that didn't quite work. I think the biggest thing that I had an issue with was I had a character and I had not good anatomy on it. And so, yeah, I just gessoed over it, toned the canvas. That was this one. It's been a while, I guess. Wasn't quite remembering. But yeah. It's always an option. I suppose with an oil painting, you just need to wait longer to do something like that until it's really well cured and you can just kind of cover some things up without worrying about it being a problem. Yeah, this is right now primarily experimenting. See if I like what comes or not. I also had bought, when I was initially working on this piece, some oil paint markers, a set of oil paint markers. Because I sometimes like using paint markers to just add maybe little weird bits of patterns or things like that just stand out a little bit in a different way. So I ordered a set of them and I haven't used them yet. So this painting should be ultimately the opportunity to do that. Check those out and see how well they work. Because the other paint, your typical paint markers like the Poscas and things are generally like a water base. So you can't use that on here. So figuring all that stuff out. The last two paintings I finished, I actually didn't happen to have used any collage in them. I'm just kind of doing something a little bit differently. I did some element of mixed media, but not actual collage. Kind of like itching to get out my bin of weird stuff and that's one of the reasons I'd also like to do watercolor as soon as another project, because that always works really well for collaging with. Okay, now that we've made this painting even more extremely purple, just adding some of the other colors too. Because everything's so dark. There's my terpenoid jar. This without it spilling everywhere. Oh my gosh, okay. What was I saying? I don't remember. Oh, because this is darker, quite a bit darker, I'm using, for my yellow tone, I'm actually just pulled out some raw sienna to play off as like the kind of yellow that you see in the oil slick reflections. Ooh, coffee. Take a sip of my coffee. I believe they have an oil ground specifically to prime oil canvas. Okay, yeah, I kind of figured that might be the case. Could it go over oils? That would be the experiment. Yeah, that would be the thing. I'd have to... A quick Google search would give us that information, but yeah, that would be interesting to play around. I mean, hopefully I don't have to do that, but it's good to know. I'm too sensitive to our oils, so I haven't played with them much. Open acrylics have been an interesting compromise. I actually do really like acrylics. It's a little different. It's just different. And I've always used them, so I'm extremely comfortable with them. And my favorite thing that kind of helps and gives it... You're never going to really recreate the ability to mix oils for how long they stay wet, but this has been my favorite kind of in between. This is an Utrecht acrylic retarder gel medium, and this does a really nice job of increasing the drying time. It dries water resistant and flexible, thins with water. Just don't mix it with oil colors. Turpentine, oil, mediums, and varnish. Okay, yeah, so it's just for acrylics, of course, which is why I got it. And it's really nice. It's you can do glazes with it, but it works really well for giving you a little extra time to do blending on the canvas. And it just depends on how you're working and what you're trying to achieve, how all that's going. And then there was like that, there's a bit of, I think, a little stigma that I've kind of picked up on and for a while was kind of falling prey to. This idea that acrylics aren't like legitimate. for a choice. It's not as like legitimate as painting with oils, and what a bunch of crap. So I'm still like I'm still enjoying playing with the differences and what you can achieve differently with them and how they work, but yeah, I mean, no apologies for working with and enjoying acrylic paints and what they can do. So this gives sort of the impression of a little bit of that yellow, even though it's actually, I mean, it's a yellow toned brownish color, kind of. It does the job over all the darker purple hues. Yeah, I was always very concerned about like the safety of oils working with them in my studio because I didn't know how to deal with any of the things. But it seems that there are some much better options anymore, like using the Gamsol or the terpenoid instead of turpentine is a lot less awful. And I imagine still not perfect. Still want, like, I have a fan on in the studio and I could probably do better, even yet with ventilation. This is, especially this time of year, it's a little harder now that it's quite chilly outside. In the summertime, I can throw a fan in the window and kind of create my own little ventilation system, but right now it is less ideal. Looking pretty chaotic at the moment, but that might be okay. Not that I'm not one to lean away from the chaos. I definitely like a little maximalism in my artwork. The trick is just managing your focal point if you have something that you want to remain your focal point somehow or another. So like for this painting, the high level of contrast in the face, right now this is probably the highest contrast area, and then it would be like the face and the hair that kind of pulls to the arm. That still, because it has some really light lights and then also like some details, it's still, even though this is like just becoming a big mess of colors, it still kind of holds the priority of where your eye goes. Let me step back a sec. I think this might almost get there. Close enough that I think I'll be happy with it. Let's see. yesterday my goal had been finish a video that I've been working on for weeks and trying to get posted, which I finally did, but I had hoped in my mind that was going to happen like before noon. Didn't happen before noon. I didn't get it done till like 7, 8 o'clock at night. So the other thing I was going to focus on was what I wanted to do as my next painting and really kind of flesh that out. Start fleshing that out, and it's like just that thing of always thinking you got more time, things aren't going to take as long as they do, time blindness kind of thing I very much struggle with. But the thing is, there's always stuff to work on. Always. Recently saw a citrus-based oil thinner. Things have changed since I last looked at oils. Yeah, that would be kind of cool. I would like that. I'll have to look into that one too. Citrus-based would be much more pleasant. Yeah. There's always something new coming out. Shortly after I bought this set of oils, I also was, because, you know, I'm a reasonable human being. I bought also a set of gouache. Like, I have never really... I did work with gouache in college, and back then I hated it. I didn't see the advantages that it could have for how it works, and I just always felt so flat. I just didn't like it. But once I, you know, older, wiser, decided I wanted to kind of play with that again. I got a set of gouache as well, right after I bought the oil paints, because reasonable. Totally reasonable thing to do. And played with those a little bit. I love experimenting and learning and trying different things. I can get a little carried away. Like 2 years ago, it was... I randomly, like, needed to learn how to work with, enamel? Resin. Yeah. I needed to try resin. It's gonna be brilliant. I can utilize it in all these different ways. It's exactly what I need to learn how to do. Bought all the supplies, used it like once or twice, and it is in a drawer. All that stuff in a drawer. Or a cabinet. I don't even know right now. Yeah. What's the next shiny thing? It's hard, because I want to learn all the things. I want to play with all the stuff and try all the different things that are available, and there's never enough time, and, well, everything costs money, and there's only so much of that to go around. That's been a good way to force myself to, like, chill the heck out about learning new things, is like, A, I have enough stuff to work with here, like way more than enough to keep me busy for a while, and B, I cannot spend any more money, like, not unless it's for something that makes entirely sense to spend it on, and it's like a legit business expense. Like, really had to pull that back. I've never been one to spend a lot of money, but like art supplies. If I had all the money in the world, you would not see me buying fancy purses or shoes or anything like that. I would be buying all the art and all the art supplies. Just like, everybody has their thing, I guess. That's definitely my thing. Mixed media requires all the things. You won't ever get bored. That's the truth of it, isn't it? And that's one of the reasons I always love working with on paper with watercolor is because I can start with the watercolor, and then you can add anything on top of it, anything at all, in an order that makes sense probably. But yeah, watercolor first, because that can't go over anything else. Then acrylics and collage and ink and any other thing I can think of. And then after that, if I really wanted to, I could even add oils on top. That would be the last layer, but I think you can do all of it. And you end up with a crazy piece of paper that's been pushed to its absolute limits. And that's probably why decent watercolor paper is, everything's pricey, but it's all good. I'm just trying not to waste anything. Hence the cutting board. Money and space. I have no idea how artists organize. Well, right now there is a reason that you're only seeing this much in my studio. I try. It's really hard to stay organized. I think this is the space that is my studio is half of a spare bedroom. We have a 2-bedroom condo. So this is a little like 10 by 11 foot room, and it's split in half. My partner has, I don't know, I might have taken a little more than half, but he's got part of the room for music equipment, and I have my art studio as the other part. But yeah, I mean, there's things coming out of our ears here. And I've tried to organize the closet. There's a nice big, like, the sliding door closet thing meant to hold clothes, and that works all right, but I think that I could definitely use some better shelving that fits that space and makes it work better. So right now I just have some very cheap shelving in there that doesn't entirely fit the space right, but it's been a stopgap measure because of the affordability of it. And that's, yeah. The biggest problem, to be honest, is the paintings themselves. Especially if you start working with larger stuff, like watercolor that's not massively huge. Those pieces, I have archival boxes that I can put them in. And those boxes can hold quite a bit, and those can go in a closet and be held nicely. The biggest problem is big canvases, like in closets and all over the floor. It's like leaning against things. That's, I think, what I have the biggest trouble with organizing and figuring out where to put in this space, because it's not like an official art studio. If I even were to be in a position where I wanted to spend the money and have like rent an art studio space, there aren't any near me. I live in, currently, suburbia. And while you can find every grocery store, drugstore, big box store you ever wanted, and there's, something to be said for that convenience. There's also a nice big Dick Blick art supply store within 5 miles of me, and all things. But there's not a whole lot of culture. So there's not, like, I haven't been able to find my people around me, like my artists. You gotta go into the city, and I am not that far from the city of Chicago, but enough that it is still a thing to go. Feels like you almost have to utilize the ceiling for things like that. The largest shelf that isn't stepped on. Yeah, going up. I started kind of doing that even out here in the studio. Like my iPad, my camera isn't quite, there's sort of these little shelves back here going up the wall. That helps. I got, over there on the wall, I have actually what is a mop and broom holder mounted to the wall, and that holds some of my like tripods and lighting equipment, so I can get that stuff off the floor. So yeah, utilizing up space is really, really a good thing to do. And I really should, I mean, seriously, the ceiling. It's like some kind of cement board in here. I wonder if I can, I'd probably have to check with my HM. Drill into the ceiling. And the neighbors, upstairs neighbors' place falls right directly into ours. But it's true. Yeah, space and storage are a thing to try to work around. Of course, it depends on the kind of artist you are. There were quite a few years where I was almost entirely working digitally because that required like just a computer, no space, a computer, and I had like a tablet, a Wacom, I don't know, tablet. That's all I needed. And so I kind of, for quite a while, I was working in design and I was doing some illustration work on the side. And that's what I needed for that. It was fine at the time, but I really got over a significant amount of time. I just work with my hands and brushes and tangible. I want to see and feel and get my hands and my fingers into what I'm doing with my art. And so I started reacquainting myself with some of the materials that I wasn't using as frequently anymore. And a few years later, here we are. It's always figuring things out. Always making adjustments. Like I made a video this summer, like kind of did a whole redo of my studio setup to try to make it work better for the way that I was working. And that made a significant improvement, but it's constantly, even yet, constantly in a state of getting tweaked, getting it adjusted. As one thing or another changes, or I decide that I won't put to work on something different than what I've been doing, or the size of something different than I've been doing. And just investing in a decent easel this last year. Man. Makes a difference. But the smartest way to maximize your space and your wallet is to really kind of break down what you actually need for how you actually work. And sometimes that's easier said than done. And it can take a little trial and error to figure out. But if you can kind of get a hang of what that is, how that's going to be before diving in, buying easel or new desk or anything like that, that sets you up for the best opportunity of something working for you. Here's one of the things that I actually hate or don't enjoy about working with oil paints is how sticky everything gets with the oil. Like the container that I keep the terpenoid in even, and anything that any materials you use, just like I feel like no matter how much I clean things or what material I use to clean it, if just everything just gets this like sticky film, and I don't much enjoy that. Also, my hands get sticky film too, but that's because I'm a psychopath who can't learn to keep her hands out of the paint. Yeah, it's the learning as you go thing, absolutely. 100%. 100%. Alright, what on earth is going on here? Kind of feel like I wouldn't mind having a like that. I have a teal and I have the purple. I kind of feel like I wouldn't mind having some like a darker blue as well. Brush a little bit, grab another paint. One day I might learn my lesson about not using my hands for everything, but you know what? It's all right. It's our tools we're born with. Okay. Good little mix. We've been sitting a little while. Just a tiny bit with the oil that I'm using for the kind of glazing the colors. It goes pretty far. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't entirely remember why I painted that. Maybe. Okay. Yeah, I kind of hate it at the moment, but we'll see what we can do with that. And that might not be today necessarily. 11:25 or almost an hour and a half. But yeah, maybe it might come to me. Might. Leave that open. It starts to get tacky because that's that quick drying medium. And it's funny to use the quick drying medium when I'm painting with oil paints. It's sort of like as if I'm trying to make my oil paints behave more like my acrylic paints, which sort of almost defeats the purpose, yeah. Kind of funny. But just for what I'm doing today, I don't want, again, this to be wet forever. I'd like to be able to, if I decide to cover it up or keep layering on top of it with something else, like, I'd like to just be able to do that relatively soon rather than have to wait ages for that to dry, and I don't know. I should definitely be judged for my inappropriate use of oil painting materials, probably. But as long as I'm not doing anything that is harmful to myself or others, it's just my own problem. I don't think I'm doing anything that's going to make the paint like flake off or anything like goofy like that, but I guess you never know. Trying things. I've had a few things that I've done on stream that I would say that I am like downright embarrassed of, but I leave them up. I leave those streams up. I don't delete them because I think it's just real. sometimes things don't go the way you would like them to go. And that's like naturally, that's just the creative process. That's how it is. And to pretend that everything that I touch and do comes out great and it's always beautiful, like that's a lie. That is like the Instagramification of the creative process. It's not that pretty. Let's try things, experiment, make changes, make adjustments, try again. It's like the constant reimagining and reevaluating. That's the reality of the creative process. So I leave up really kind of embarrassingly bad things and let them be just an account of how it actually goes. I think it's damaging. Like I've heard creators say when they're making like videos of their work, I think that you've layered well to avoid that. Oh, well, thank you. Appreciate that feedback. I've heard a few people who are artists talk about, it was like within a week's time a while ago, that filming everything and putting it together to go on social media has just ruined the creative process for them. It's just ruined the joy in creating. It's like, well, then be honest about it. Like, don't edit it to the point that it's not real anymore. Just relax and post what it's really like. Post how the process actually goes. For one, it's a lot less work. And for another, it's just being more genuine about what it is. And I, you know, not everybody's ever going to want to do that. I get that. But it's just being real. Because I also feel the same way about talking about like mental health. Somebody who has struggled with mental health issues, nothing gets better if we don't talk about these things to kind of reduce the stigma of it. And then we can learn to recognize issues for ourselves, for our loved ones, maybe before they become major issues. And that's why just, it's important to be real. Also, if I was easily embarrassed, I'd never go live because I'm constantly dropping stuff and making a mess and things always going wrong. Just can't control everything. It's okay. So hopefully, I hope that being the case, I don't know if that would make anyone see me as less of a artist worth time to pay attention to, or anything like that, any kind of judgments like that, but it's okay. I don't know, and it's fine. Hopefully, at the end of the day, the work will, you know, at least to some extent speak for itself, even though, like, well, my work is nuts, but there's nothing wrong with that. I don't know. Don't worry about those things. Don't worry about what other people care about that much. Just hope that being honest about it and real about it is something that helps people, like, to be willing to try and experiment and just be their weird selves, because if all you see is the edited Instagram version of everything that you thought maybe you wanted to try. That doesn't really help to give you like a real idea of what to do, what you're getting into, why to be like, you shouldn't be afraid. Just get in there and get your hands dirty. Real's good. I think live is raw. Fearless in the face of tutorials where they have a perfect result before posting. And muting, yeah. See? Exactly. You know what I'm talking about. And the truth is, that's not the first time that's happened. I try really hard to avoid having that happen, but before. There was one stream where my cat walked across my keyboard in the middle of the stream, and he like switched scenes or something on my streaming software, so it went to something completely different and got all goofy, and he makes things a whole nother level of nuts when he comes around. Every now and again he decides he wants to like try to jump up on my shoulders or my back just to get a look at what I'm doing and to be involved. But he's not a tiny cat. He's like he's healthy weight for him. He's just a tall, long cat. He's like over 15 pounds. He cannot fit on my shoulders and stand. I'm just not that broad. So it's always just like, oh, there's claws. Where did those come from? What's happening? So, keeps things interesting around here too. It's just all chaos in the Paint Fumes studio. Various forms of chaos. That's okay. So chaos is interesting. It can be. Make things difficult. Sometimes. But I've definitely learned that that's just a part of, it's also just a part of who I am. Like, I'm one of those folks that was like undiagnosed ADHD for almost my whole life. And all the things, clumsiness, forgetfulness, absent-mindedness, like dropping things, bad spatial awareness, walking into stuff, like all these things that I always, these are just my character quirks. These are just, oh, isn't Lynell funny? She walks into us. You know, the things that were just quirks, always, and then you realize, like, well, there's a reason that those things were happening. And they still are, even though I'm, you know, lucky enough to be getting finally a diagnosis and treatment, and things are better, like more manageable, at least. It's still a walking disaster. Like, I don't know that this many years of being... Well, this was disproven, but I always say a bull in a china shop. That's sort of how I feel like I approach things, and I know that bulls don't actually break things in china shops, and that was just proven. Just, it's my metaphor. That's always how I feel. And I don't think that that can be trained out of you in a day, you know? It'll take me a few years to develop habits and things, and whatever. It's fine. Who cares? Who cares? I drop things and make messes. That's who I am. But at least there's color involved. Going back in and adding a few lighter areas just to kind of maintain the mass of her figure suggested underneath the surface of this kind of chaotic water. Whatever you might want to think of it as. So, I'm just trying to decide where it needs to be lighter and how light? Just, whew, it's so shiny. Just letting there be some lighter areas where the light would be catching, like her arms, highlights on her arms here, under this water that's probably pretty disgusting to be underneath, but it's all metaphor. Alrighty. It's good to see the ugly stage and see that you can get out of the woods when feeling lost in the art. It's so important. Yeah, and almost everything I make goes through a real ugly stage or two. I was 40 when diagnosed with ADHD. There's so much to grieve, yet also celebrate. Yes. Yeah, I was 38 or 39 when I got my diagnosis. And yeah, you hit it on the head. Like, there is that relief that comes with, like, understanding that the things that you struggled with aren't just, like, character flaws, character failings. But yeah, like, that grief of what you might have been, what you might have achieved if you'd known sooner, if you'd gotten the resources and been able to look up, find the help for what works for people with ADHD, because the same things that are normal advice for somebody who's neurotypical don't generally work for us. Like, organizational tips and things like that are usually, like, you try them all. I've tried them all. 4,000 planners in my lifetime. 4,000 planners that I have tried to use. I could probably stock an entire dumpster with all of the wasted planners that I bought over years and things like that, try to make work, because I was struggling with being organized and motivated and productive, and I didn't know why. Yeah, so what could have been? But there's nothing we can do about it. So I'm just move forward, and hopefully with what we know now, and maybe with what resources we have available to us now, things can be better, easier, a little bit, even a little bit. That's freaking hard. And that's another area where also I think talking more about the experience of what it is like to struggle with, like, ADHD is helpful, in the sense that for other folks that just to put the information into the world where people maybe can find out before their age, women especially, because if you look at the data on it, the average age for diagnosis of ADHD for men is 7 years old. 7. For women, it's late 30s, early 40s. Like, it just wasn't considered a thing that women or girls had because it presented differently for them. However, the outcomes for women who have undiagnosed ADHD are not good. So we need to start recognizing it sooner. Much sooner, really. I mean, for those of us who already exist in the world, I mean, I don't know how much that helps, but for the next generation of girls, hopefully things will be easier and better for them. And for the people who don't want the label, and are all not a fan of like they don't want that label put on their kids or whatever else. It's not about a label, it's about having resources to help. The label leads to the resources to understand and to help. And it shouldn't be like a thing of shame. It's normal. It's not as like a weird thing that makes us piranhas to society, you know? It's just something that means things are going to be harder for us. And there are areas in which we can what do you call it? Thrive? Words. But sometimes that's like, not all of us are lucky enough to figure that out or stumble into it or whatever at a point in which it's helpful. It helps make amazing art. All those feelings, looking for an outlet. It's a good place to go when it's too much. Yeah, I've always used my art as an outlet for what was going on up here. It's saved my life, I think. I'm glad you at least got diagnosed to get this next stage in your journey. Thank you. Thank you. And you too. They knew my twin brother had it in elementary school, yet never looked at his sister. Oh, facepalm. Such major facepalm there. Oh my god, I'm sorry. Art and Diamonds, hello. With Eskies, is that correct? I hope I'm saying that right. I think part of this is because women are good at finding ways to function no matter what situation we are in. Another reason is probably women have never really been the priority in education. Yeah, there's even more to that. There's still issues with women in research, in medical research. There tends to be a real still lack of representation of women in research, and women weren't, especially in the early days of diagnosing and young men, girls weren't being looked at in the instances of those research broadly. That didn't come till much later, and we started to understand. And there's the internalization of the symptoms have a lot to do with also socialization, and girls have a tendency to be very good at masking. There's so much just inherent pressure that good girls behave a certain way. Well, maybe there's less of that for young men, like where rambunctiousness is considered like normal, and I don't know. There's a lot of layers. There's a lot of layers to it, but I really hope that it's getting better for kids nowadays to get diagnosed and to get help. Yes, Eskies is what everyone calls me online. Okay. Okay. Hello. I have CPTSD and then didn't diagnose me until 51. Yeah, that's not uncommon one either. And there's been some talks recently about like CPTSD and its role in ADHD. And there's some guy who came out not that long ago with saying that he believed that trauma leads to ADHD. That's his not very well educated opinion. But if you look at statistics, numbers, ADHD is mostly a genetic thing, and but the trauma does tend to go with it. So why likely is that? It probably comes down to, when it's genetic, it's coming from a parent, right? And if it's coming from a parent, that parent is likely struggling in different ways that influence the way that children are raised. And I'm nowhere near saying that if you're ADHD, you're traumatizing your children. I'm just saying that it can, for people who don't know, lead to situations in which there can be trauma at home growing up. In sometimes really unforeseen and unexpected ways even. And the role that, well, CPTSD for sure with this too, play in our self-confidence, kind of almost lack of, maybe. Like women who are late diagnosed ADHD, women who have CPTSD, I got both of those things also, yay. Yeah, we tend to have really poor perceptions of ourselves. And that's something that breaks my heart. I know it to be true because I live it. And I would like to see that become not the norm in some way, shape, or form. And honestly, like, education and just speaking about stuff constantly is, I think, the best way that we can have any influence in that. And these things do affect boys and young men. Also, women are just particularly at risk because of the lack of diagnostics and research and other cultural and societal garbage that plays into it. And things, in some ways, I think are better. However, there's a long way to go. Like, just with mental health in general, I think it's not as taboo as it once was to talk about it or to seek therapy. Like, I think that when I was a kid, somebody that you found out was in therapy for depression or things like that, that would be more like dinner table gossip than, oh, they're good there. Oh yeah, okay. I know there's a good therapist in town. Hopefully they got a good one and they're getting the help they need. No, it'd be more like, it was more of a shocking thing back in the day. And I think less so now, but we still have room for improvement. All right, am I just making a mess now? A little bit, but it's okay. Yep, there's Watson Cat. We're getting close to his lunchtime, so ooh, really close. So that's why he's here. Yeah, no, I don't mind it. I think I could still continue to tweak, but I kind of like where it's going, maybe? The camera is definitely picking up some glare from the lighting. I hope I can adjust that a bit. There's that tricky element of light, glare, having the right light to actually see what I'm doing, and having it affect the canvas and how the camera picks it up. No, that's not really helping. There, you can kind of see a little bit more of like what I've been doing here. So it's getting to have kind of an interesting glassy look with colors. I think the only thing that's sort of starting to bother me now is right here, this arm, just this flat, bright color of the skin of the arm is becoming a real focal point, drawing the eye a little too much, so I'm gonna have to figure out what to do to tone that back. Maybe it's just some glazes to really build up more shadow, so there's just a little bit of highlight on there, not lighter than like the face. That might be what it has to be. Yeah, I think that's probably what I'm gonna have to do, but it won't, I don't think it will be today. It's a good mess, coming along nicely, thank you. Yeah, it's figuring out that trauma plays a role is significant, and it can take a while. I probably was working with my fourth therapist, where she just happened to be like, after asking a certain question, oh, I think that maybe you might have some trauma. Do you think you might have some trauma? And it never even occurred to me, and it was just like, hit me like a ton of bricks, like, maybe, just maybe, that might be exactly true. But yeah, I don't know. People don't ask the right questions, and you don't know yourself to look at those things. It's hard. I'm thankful that I have a very supportive husband and grown kids and wonderful grandkids as well. And most especially your physical service animals. Yes, they are your saving grace every day. That is wonderful. I'm so glad you have that. I'm a photorealistic animal artist. Oh, wow. And I recently am venturing into some watercolors. Cool, for backgrounds. And it's helping me to loosen up some things that I do. Yeah, it's always, for me, walking the line between really getting in and rendering things and then letting go and letting be, like, and doing loosely. I'm still like in that push and pull of figuring out what works the best. But I think this is a really good spot. This is a little messy in here, but I'm a little tacky with my fast drying medium, so I'm gonna let it dry, and then I might do a little fixing here, and then it'll be, maybe I'll go in with some markers, but this might be really close to being done. Holy crap. Hey. Yeah, and this stupid circle, I'll get that dealt with. That was one of those things. I feel like just painting this here. We'll figure it out. That, you know, I'll have to figure it out. Yeah. So I think we will call it a stream. It's been about 2 hours working on random things. My board that I been working on finishing in the beginning is dry to the touch. We'll let that cure overnight, and then I'll give it a light sanding in the morning, and that'll be ready to paint on. So yay, excited about that. But yeah, thank you so much for hanging out with me here. Sat for as long as it needed. Yeah, it worked out very well to just let that be for a bit. So hey, actually did this thing that I've been sitting on for like 1.5 years, 2 years maybe. But yeah, so okay, I gotta go feed my cat and myself, and I'll be back in here on, it's Thursday today, right? Holy cow. Monday evening. It's so nice to meet you all. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for stopping in and hanging out with me. It's nice to have the company in the studio. And hopefully I will see you here again. I'll be back on Monday at 7 p.m. Central. I'm in the Illinois area outside of Chicago, so Central Time in the US, 7 p.m. And back at it again, working on, maybe on my cutting board. By then I'll be ready to go. So thank you so much, and have an awesome weekend. I hope all the creative energy all the healing energy, everything good. So have a good one. Bye.